That's why I'm not chairman, I break everything. Good evening, councillors and member of the public. Welcome to the meeting of the Eastern Committee. My name is Councillor Else and I'm the vice chairman of the committee, and I have a strange echo in the back. Something you wish. Okay. Yes, so please keep your statements and brief and to the point. We'll be timing speeches this evening as usual, and an alarm will sound when you have been speaking for 4 minutes. So if we move rapidly on to the first item on the agenda, which is the election of a chairman. Now, as you will have noticed, our previous chairman, Councillor Paul Rivers, has moved on to loftier things, if indeed the executive is loftier than a planning committee, but he can't stay away. He's sitting over there. He's going to keep an eye on me, possibly. And working on the theory that behind every good man, there's an even better woman, or so Jenny tells me anyway. I would like to propose that Councillor Penny Rivers be our new chairman. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. So I'd invite Councillor Rivers to come in. Seconded by Maxine. Is that agreed? Agreed. Once again. Try again. Up and down. We don't have to drag you to your seat like the speaker or anything, do we? So I hand over to our new chairman.
Thank you for your confidence, everybody. And so we'll go directly to agenda item number 2, which is apologies for absence and substitutions. Georgina, are there any?
Yes, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor George Wilson, substituted by Councillor Nick Palmer, and Councillor John Gray, substituted by Councillor Val Henry.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, minutes of the last meeting. Members do confirm the minutes of the meeting held on January the 12th.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4, declarations of interest. Georgina, are there any?
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. And number 5, questions by members of the public. Georgina, are there any questions?
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. And questions by members, are there any?
None received.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7, any relevant updates to government guidance or legislation since the last meeting? Catherine, would you be so kind as to update us?
Thank you, Chairman. There are no updates relevant to the matters to be considered this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we come to applications for planning permission. And the first one on our agenda is WA 2021-0306, land at 7 Mare Lane, Hascombe, a proposal for erection of extensions and a detached garage and alterations to the drop curb and associated works. Catherine, I think you're going to update us on this.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. First of all, apologies, members, that you will have received a late update with regards to this item this afternoon. Members will be aware of the background to this application. The application was previously determined under delegated powers. Subsequently, the decision was quashed with regards to the assessment made in terms of the Greenbelt and heritage assets. We have since received advice from Council with regards to a revised report and recommendation. However, this afternoon it has come to our attention that the statement of facts and grounds in relation to the judicial challenge may not have been passed to our barrister. Therefore, whilst we have sought the advice of Council in respect of the report before you this evening, the advice offered was provided without sight of the aforementioned document. In order to ensure that all matters pertinent to the decision-making process have been properly and thoroughly reviewed by Council, it is recommended that consideration of this application is deferred. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Catherine. So members, are we agreed to defer this application? please show. Oh, Councillor Denis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm flabbergasted that we've obtained legal advice and spent all that money and haven't even provided them with the correct information. And I'm sure if anybody's watching this tonight, they'd be wondering why we've wasted that money. I know the portfolio holder is here, and I have no doubt Councillor Townsend will look into this, but I think it's awful that we've held a meeting, haven't had the correct information, got the information at 5 o'clock tonight when I was in another meeting anyway, so I couldn't have read it. And we've wasted money getting advice on poorly provided data. So I suppose my request is that we look at how this has happened. And by the way, I do agree with the deferment.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No. So members, are we agreed to defer this application?
Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman,
Oh,
sorry.
Barry on the screen.
Yes.
I would just like to explain that the statement of grounds and facts, which contains considerably more material than was in the pre-action protocol letter before claim communication, which we received last May, this document was only received yesterday in response to a query by the head of planning, and clearly there is much more material behind the claim for judicial review. We simply did not have this material at the time we briefed council for advice. So that's the reason why this has all happened very late in the day. We just didn't have the advice and weren't cognizant of this material. We now are, and we will urgently seek updated council's advice on this new material. That's the position, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Costa.
If I can just make a comment, I hear what our solicitor says us, but I'm bound to say I do share what Kevin Denis has said. That it just doesn't seem right that we could have made that referral without the grounds being available. And I do hope that as well as agreeing formally to defer this, we can also agree, and I'm happy to second or move if somebody wants to move it as well, that the circumstances leading up to this situation are investigated properly.
Thank you, Councillor Costa. Again, are there any other speakers? No, so thank you for those comments. And could you signify whether you agree that this application should be deferred tonight? Great. Thank you. Yes, it's been noted. Thank you. So we move on now to the application. Oh, I beg your pardon. Thank you very much for being here and willing to speak, should that not have been deferred, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you. And Councillor Richard Seaborn, you also, we look forward to seeing you again. So agenda item number 10, applications.
I had asked that I'd be given the opportunity to put a proposal in connection with this item, the circumstances leading up to the need for this deferral and the absence of that information being available at the time we asked for an opinion be properly investigated by our portfolio holder. And I'd like to make that a formal proposal.
Okay, is there a seconder for there is? So all in favour of that proposal, please show.
I'm sure you are, yes. We should record it. Thank you, Chair.
So now we move on to agenda item number 10, the applications not subject to public speaking. And the first is WA 2021-02922, land at Cramhurst Lane, Wickley, a proposal of erection of extensions and alterations to elevations. Susie, would you like to take this on, please?
Chair. Sorry. It's not there.
You unlocked it. So now go back to Zoom. Just do that there. You'll only get the slideshow then.
This item has been brought to committee as it falls outside the scheme of delegation as the agent is related to a member of staff and the applicant is a member of staff. The application seeks planning permission for extensions to the side and rear of 60 Cramhurst Lane to provide additional habitable accommodation. Please note that there has been an update since the report was printed. The update alleviates the neighbouring concerns regarding overlooking at number 62 Cramhurst Lane. The application site is outlined in red. So number 60 is located on the east side of Cramhurst Lane. This is the block plan showing number 60 in relation to number 58. The submission proposes a two-storey extension to the southern side and to the rear eastern elevation, with a single-storey extension joining the existing single-storey offshoot. These photos show number 60 Cramhurst Lane from the front, the rear, and in relation to neighbouring properties. You note number 58, where the red arrow is, there's a side bedroom window. So these are the existing elevations of 60 Cramhurst Lane. The west elevation is the front facade. And these are the proposals. They show the side and rear extensions. The ridge height is set down from the main ridge line. The side extension is set back from the front facade. The proposal is subservient to the existing dwelling. Please note that the parapet wall on the rear boundary with number 62 has been increased in height to prevent overlooking. So the increase in height has gone back to the same height as the current existing offshoot. So these are the existing plans of Cramhurst Lane. And these are the proposed plans. They show the side and rear extension located on the south and east side of the property. So the main matters for consideration are the impact on neighbouring amenity, specifically number 58. So despite the 45-degree vertical analysis being breached for the rear two-storey extension, there would be no additional loss of light to number 58 Cramhurst Lane, which does already receive a reduced level of light due to the position of their own existing extension, which also breaches the 45-degree line. The bedroom window closest to number 62 would have minimal oblique views of the roof lights in the neighbouring property roof, since there would be a parapet wall on the boundary, which would prevent overlooking. Any residual downward overlooking would afford minimal glimpse views into the property that would not amount to materially harmful overlooking. So officer recommendation is that permission be granted subject to conditions, and conditions include the first floor windows on the southern elevation shall be fitted with purpose-made obscure glazing the extent that intervisibility is excluded and shall be retained as such. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So as you can see, the recommendation is that permission be granted, but members, your views, please. Do you agree the recommendation? In which case, please signify. Yes. Thank you indeed. So our second application this evening is WA 2001-02568 land at Woodstock, Hookley Lane in Elstead. A proposal to erect some extensions and alterations to the existing single-storey dwelling to provide a two-storey dwelling. Susie, over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. This item has been brought to committee as it falls outside the scheme of delegation as the agent is related to a member of staff. This application seeks planning permission for extensions to the first floor of Woodstock Hookley Lane to provide additional habitable accommodation. Bear with me. The application site is outlined in red. Woodstock is located on the western side of Hookley Lane. This is a block plan showing Woodstock. The submission proposes a first floor extension which would raise the roof by 1 metre. These photos show Woodstock from the front, the rear and with neighbouring properties. Please note that Craigie to the right of Woodstock has had approval for a similar extension. So these are the existing elevations of Woodstock. And these are the proposed elevations. The drawings show the height increase of the proposal to create a two-storey house. The ground floor area will not increase in size. So these are the existing and proposed first floor plans of Woodstock. So the main matters for consideration are the impact on residential amenity and the impact on the rural settlement and the AOMB and AGLV. Officers consider that there will be no impact on the amenity of neighbouring properties from the proposal. Officers can just consider the scale, design and use of materials are appropriate within the rural settlement and the Surrey Hills, AOMB and AGLV. The officer recommendation is that permission be granted subject to conditions. Conditions include notwithstanding the provision of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order 2015 or any order revoking and reacting that order with or without modification, no windows, dormer windows or any other openings other than those expressly authorised in this permission shall be constructed in the north or south elevations of the extension hereby permitted without the written permission of the local planning authority. The first floor window in the northern elevation should be glazed with obscure glazing to the extent that intervisibility is excluded and shall be retained. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Susie. So once again, members, the recommendation is this should be granted subject to conditions, but your views, please. Councillor Denis.
Thank you. I thought I was going to be the only one to speak, and my apologies to my colleagues if you think I'm being grumpy, but you know, tonight we've got, I think, 21 people in this chamber, plus member of the public stroke councillor watching. We've all had to drive here, so that's all the petrol and, you know, the environment for now 2 applications, which is no fault of the case officer, that we've got to bring here because they're related to a member of staff. This can't be good use of our time. You know, again, what has the cost been tonight to hold this meeting? So the application, I have no comments. Again, and ask my colleague, and that's not why I sat next to you, Liz, but we should look at this. Why, is there a better process which is more efficient, still transparent, that doesn't create the work for the case officer, plus take our time when we've got lots of other things to do? There must be a better process that we can go by. So again, I'd ask Councillor Townsend, I'm sure she'll look at that. Thank you for indulging me.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Dinas. We just have a word of clarification from Catherine on that.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think we probably share your frustration about reporting these matters to the Planning Committee. I believe that a change to the scheme of delegation would require a change to the constitution. So unfortunately, that's not something as planning officers that we can alter. But your points are noted. I'm sure our portfolio holder will take that up with the head of planning. The point that you've made there.
Can I come in just on that point? I've already taken it up with the head of planning, and we're already looking at changing the scheme of delegation so that this doesn't happen. But as Catherine has highlighted, it's not something that can be changed overnight, but it is already in the process. So it's one of the first things that, obviously, I think I've only been doing this 2 weeks, and but it is one of the first things that I have brought up, and that we are definitely going through the process. So I could make you happy tonight. Then there you go. And I did want to say something about the actual application, if I could go on in a moment, of course.
Thank you. Just to sort of confirm with members, the constitution is currently under review.
Thank you. So Councillor Townsend, then I think we have Councillor Goodridge to speak. So
thank you. I only had one comment really, and obviously as the property next door is also going in a similar way, but my concern was having wandered down Hookley Lane, was that I'm just concerned about making sure that materials and everything are stored on site. So whether or not we can, during the build, because it is quite narrow there and it would cause quite an obstruction if stuff was in the road. So I didn't know whether or not we could make sure that the materials are stored on site and also construction traffic would be quite an obstruction on the lane. There is a little grass verge on the front of the property, and I'm not sure whether that's owned by the property or that's highways. If it is a highways, please, if they wreck it, could it be a condition that they do actually restore it back to its original state? Because obviously I've had this issue with other builds, and on country lanes where there are grass verges, it's a real problem. So that's really what I'm concerned about, is just making sure that wherever we can, that we tie up something during that construction phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Catherine.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can maybe just reply to you there, Councillor Townsend. Appreciate your concerns about traffic and construction activity and the impact that might have on the highway as such. Given the scale of the development, it's probably not reasonable to condition anything like a construction transport management plan. So we wouldn't meet the condition tests if we applied it for what are essentially extensions and alterations. However, I take on board your point. The other point about storing materials either on the verge or on the road, obviously that would require a permit and permission from the County Highway Authority. In any case, they would require a licence for that. So what I would suggest, as I say, I don't think the scale of development warrants a condition in this instance. That would be my advice to you. However, what I would say is we can attach an informative reminding the contractors to park considerately and to consider the timing and location of deliveries to the site during the course of the work, and to encourage them to restore any damage to the verges.
That would be great. And it has been brought to my attention recently that we do have like a good sort of contractors or a good build guide kind of thing, and it would be great if we could attach that almost as an informative to every single application, to be honest. So if that could be attached, that would be the way I would be considerate contractors.
We can certainly refer to that guidance in an informative. So if you would like an informative,
thank you, that would be great. If I could propose that, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Hopefully I'll have a second.
Yeah. So it's been seconded. So is everybody in favour of that? Agreed. Councillor Goodridge.
Thank you, Chairman. A minor point, because I'm easily confused. You know, from page 49 through, all the headings for the plans are wrong. They're always one page out, which I cottoned onto when it said side elevation or something, and it clearly wasn't a side, but was a front. So somehow all the headings have slipped a page for some reason or other. I'm sure it's a one-off problem, but
Thank you, Councillor Goodridge. I'm sure you'll monitor that. Councillor Gale.
Yeah, just on the subject of these applications that have come tonight, I'm on the Standards Committee, and that is something we were discussing last month, how that can be refurbed in the new constitution. And we were supposed to have met last week, but I think it's been deferred now for about a month. So hopefully it's coming through and it won't take too long.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair, and good to see you in the big chair. I'd just like to say about the point that Councillor Denis was making and the potential change to the Constitution, that actually there has been very good motivation for what has been the practice up till now, which is that decisions where there are connections, I think it's clear what they are here, should be seen to be taken very transparently. And it's hugely important that planning decisions are taken transparently and that there is no grounds for suspicion of undue influence anywhere. So I'm not saying what I think about the potential change to the Constitution, but I do just want to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Denis.
Other points are not of my own. Going on about the point about storage and repair in the highways, I think we're going to be very careful because it's unlawful to park on the pavement or on the common land, etc. So we're going to be very careful. I wonder whether we could just have a condition which says something along the lines of that all building materials to be stored on site and within the owner's control or something like that. So you can't then put them on that public highway. It's very clear, and it's not a traffic management plan or anything like that. Because, you know, in highways, if they know it's being stored for, you know, often happens a big load of bricks and stuff will be stored there. That is on the highway. That is an offence.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of enforcing that, then, there is other legislation that would deal with any issue to do with storing materials on the highway. It's not something that we can control. I appreciate that you would like to see a negatively worded condition to ensure that materials are stored within the site. I guess my only concern with that kind of condition is how enforceable it would be in terms of the developer dealing with things like deliveries where items are stored for a very short period of time, because quite often they have to be delivered and then moved onto the site. So I would question the enforceability of that condition and whether it is truly necessary. But if members feel that that would alleviate their concerns, then that you could append a condition to that effect. However, I personally don't feel it's necessary. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman. Having spent the last 50 plus years in the building sorry, I thought I had a question on. Having spent the last 50 odd years in the building industry, I don't think there's much chance with an extension of builders leaving materials out on the road to disappear overnight. And as ward councillor, I'm not casting any dispersions on the residents of Hookley Lane. A lot of them are good friends of mine, but builders just don't do that. They don't leave stuff out on the pavement, not for extensions. They bring them inside and make them secure. They're too used to losing stuff. And on the other question you raised, I think it's unfortunate tonight that something which would have been quite a detailed examination of an application was deferred, and we're left with these two. I don't know if I was the first, but I know Robin Pello, who was Robin Taylor's predecessor's monitoring officer, called me in when I first got elected and said, that he always worked on the theory of if it doesn't seem right, it probably isn't. So he asked me if I was happy to have all my applications, because I was still working then, I'm not anymore. But in those days, all my applications came before committee, and I was quite happy to do so. And I'm sure that the agent who has submitted these two tonight is as well. I think I tend to go along with Councillor Baker. I think transparency is more important. As I say, being in the architectural profession all these years, you hear so much about, oh, that thing got through planning because of a brown envelope and this, that and the other. I think as a council, we should do everything we can to avoid those sort of accusations. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that's very wise words. Councillor Townsend.
Can I just say, just because I said the scheme of delegation was going to be reviewed, doesn't mean that will go. It will be reviewed and looked at and obviously consulted on. So, you know, depends on what comes through that consultation period. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Councillor Darcy.
Just a very minor point. Would it be possible for the existing and proposed elevations for the same bit to be on the same page? It would make it much easier when you're looking at it to compare them. Just a thought.
Thank you. So, councillors, bearing in mind that there has been discussion about an additional condition, but also following on from the Vice Chairman's words, is there a proposal to have that extra condition? Is there a proposer and a seconder?
No, I won't propose. I take my colleagues' views, and I'm sure if there's any breaches, they'll be onto highways enforcement anyway for the dangerous. So I won't propose if it's unnecessary, but it was the point to make.
Thank you.
That'll be on to me, Kevin.
So any other speakers on this? No. So the recommendation is to grant with subject to conditions. Please signify if you are in
The additional informative about considerate contractors.
yes, with the additional informative for the considerate contractors to be included. With that as well, please signify if you agree the recommendation.
It's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you. So, councillors, that's 32 minutes. We obviously had enough to talk about. So thank you very much and see